right now, somewhere, there is a parent saying, put down those paints, go do your summer reading, you're never going to get paid for watercolors. And so what I do is I interview people who are getting paid in areas that people think are unrealistic career choices. So what is it that you do?
Well, first of all, I'd have to say that whole concept, if you come thinking, I need to be paid for something, that's the wrong approach. Instead of a way to make a living, this is a way of life. And I'm a painter, and I love water media, which means transparent watercolor, acrylic, gouache, or casein. These are different media that you dilute using water. And that's what I've done ever since I was very young. I'm passionate about it, and I just love being able to paint and do what I love to do. And I think that's the most important thing. If you can find something that you connect with, that you love, whether it's a painting, being a painter, or whatever it is, then everything else will fall into place if you want it bad enough. I'm a watercolor painter, and I've been able to spend the last 40 years, a little more than 40 years, doing what I love to do.
So how long did it take you? You said you've been doing it since you were very young. How long did it take you from the first moment you said, well, maybe this could be my job, to when you first got paid for?
Well, I go back a ways, and actually when I was very young, when I was a freshman in high school, I wrote my career notebook on being an artist. So way back, even before then, I had this vision, that's what I wanted to do. But I also was realistic enough to know that you just don't start painting and make a living from it, right? So I was back in the late 60s, I went through college, and I started off, I got a teaching degree. And I went out, and for 4 years I taught art in the secondary schools. So I had an income coming in. And then in evenings, weekends, and during the summer, I painted. So I just, I started this gallery way back in 1970. And, that made all the difference. And so when did I sell my first? I probably sold my first painting when I was in high school, maybe a junior in high school. I think I had a commission for a Chinese restaurant to do a painting. And that was probably the first painting I sold. And then, I had a few more opportunities, and I showed in a gallery in Fort Collins, where I grew up, and started selling a few paintings, so that every time I'd sell something, that'd give me encouragement to do more work. So it just kind of grew from there.
So for you, it was a very gradual process of, one, and then a couple more, and now you do make your living full-time as an artist, is that true?
I've been painting full-time since 1972. So that goes back a ways. Now, when I say full-time, I'm a full-time painter, but because I had that teaching background, now I do a little teaching. I do a few workshops all over the United States and the world. Like this year I was in China, and I also was in Sardinia, which is an island off the coast of Italy, and taught workshops there. I got to paint in these beautiful places, and so that teaching has really been a nice thing to supplement my painting, because I can share that, I can pass it on to other people, and it provides me the opportunity to travel to various parts of the world. Yeah.
Paint some awesome stuff.
Exactly.
So you do kind of a mixture then of painting, making a living as an artist, selling things, and also teaching, and also selling books and things.
Yeah, it's all comes together. I'd say probably 80% of what we do is from my paintings today. But I can pick and choose where I want to go, and workshops that I want to teach. And that's a good, secure, supplemental income.
So it also gives you a fair amount of freedom, that you have the choice of whatever you want to do this week or this month or whatever. And
that's really neat, but it also is it requires some discipline to have that freedom, because a lot of people just say, oh, I don't feel like painting today, I guess I'll I'll wait till I'm inspired, right? Well, you know, if that happens, you're just not going to make it. You know, you've got to step up and show up every day.
1 day or 2 days of that might be okay.
Yeah, not much.
Can't let it happen very
Right.
much. So it sounds like you have kind of a dream job. Are there any caveats you would throw out for anyone considering that sort of career?
Well, I think everybody needs to find their own path. And like I said, if you have that passion, if you have the passion and the discipline, you know, then I think that there are opportunities. One of the things that I found, you know, just, you know, not realizing it, but one of the biggest decisions I made was starting this gallery way back in 1970. I don't have to, I do show at other galleries. I show at a beautiful gallery in Taos, New Mexico. But I can put my work up here any way that I want it, show what I want, market it the way I want, and over the last 40 years I've developed this clientele I know very personally, and it's made all the difference. And I have the freedom to create and experiment and grow as a painter because it's my own gallery, you see. If you're showing it in another gallery, sometimes they'll say, I just want your blue paintings. And pretty soon you're not doing what you love to do, you're just trying to get work to the gallery. And because of the teaching, you know, I've written books and done DVD series teaching, and these materials have gotten all over the world now, you know, and so people come into our gallery that live in Florida, California, you know. I did a workshop in Sardinia, and I had someone from Finland, someone from Ireland, you know, that have studied my work in books. So it just, one thing leads to another, and it just grows.
That's fun. So when you started this gallery, did that feel like an enormous risk to be taking out rent on a place that you didn't know if it would work?
No. I was too young to know any better. Back then I was in my early 20s, and the town was a mining town, a big 2 mines in the active mining community, but there was very little tourism. So this whole downtown area where I had my gallery was boarded up. So I rented this whole downstairs building for $100 a month, you know, and so there was an apartment in the back, had a place to live, had a place to put my work up. So I didn't have to sell too much to keep going. That is one thing that I would say is most important. 2 things, but probably the most important thing is you've got to learn to budget. Because painting, in most of the arts, is not a secure month-to-month thing. Steady income, your retirement, health insurance, all that stuff. You know, you're on your own. But if you can learn to budget and you keep your overhead very low, and then as you sell more and your prices grow, then you can obviously build and go that way. But too many people go out and buy a house and buy a new car, and pretty soon their payments are too high and they can't do it. So you've got to, you know, first things have to be first.
But if you keep your overhead low, then you can be making not so much money and still not be a starving artist,
right.
Just a drives an old rusty car artist.
Yeah, that's all I need.
Which is not so bad.
And then later you can buy a newer model if things go well.
If that's what you want.
But if that's what you want.
Do you have a "don't waste your time on that" story?
Do I what?
Do you have a story where somebody said, you know, don't spend your time on that, go study aerodynamics or something?
Well, the story I have is maybe related to that, but just the opposite. I think the greatest gift my parents ever gave me was that I never sensed that you need to study something else where you can make a living. They always encouraged me, and I never felt like I couldn't do it. And I think that's the greatest gift.
Anything else you'd like to tell people?
Well, I just think that the world needs people that are passionate about what they do. Whatever that is, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a painter, whether you're a cinematographer, whether you're, you know, a lawyer, it makes no difference. But if you love what you do, I think the world will continually change for the better. And that's what we need, are people that are passionate. So I guess the one thing I'd say is listen to your soul, listen to that inner voice, and as you're growing up, and find things that you love to do. And then let that lead you.
I think that's excellent advice. So Steve Quiller is in Creede, Colorado. If you're ever in southern Colorado, stop by, check it out. Otherwise, you can check out his work online at the link in the description.